of these 5, you have to pick 4. And I don't care which 4 that you do. If you get all 4 of them done really soon, I'm going to make you do 5 of them. Just to let you know. On Monday, we're going to start something new where we start doing the project. But I want to kind of go over these because these are a little bit different. They're adding new things that we haven't talked about as far as adding and subtracting shapes away to get to more complicated stuff. So I want to go over that. There's a few other things here and there as far as constraints that I want to talk about. But then you guys hopefully have enough time to get back and work. But who knows, because someone went too long. Anyways. As I look at these top 2, let's talk about where we would start at if I was going to draw this. So if you were going to draw this shape, what would we do to start? How would we start this?
Draw the side facing that way.
This one?
No, the
Front.
The front, remember this is your front view right here. So you would draw the front, your front would be this weird looking shape right here, and you would draw it straight back. Remember, this is your front or your XY plane. This is your top. This is your right side. Okay, so knowing which plane you want, obviously is going to help. This shape here, what do you think we need to do in order to draw it?
Draw the L and then
On which plane?
the front.
The front, okay, so draw your L on the front. Okay, and that is going to include this part right here. So this part that's been cut out, when I first draw my L, I would draw that in there so it's going to be there. So I got to eventually get rid of that. And this is that new part where we got to get rid of it. So when I draw the L, that part will be there and that one. So I have to get rid of this rectangle right here and this rectangle up there. And you do that by simply just adding a new sketch. So once I get my L, you just simply click on the top and draw a rectangle, and then you can have the option to cut that away or subtract it out. Because with Inventor, you can either add things on or you can subtract or take things away. Inventor calls it join versus cut. And we'll talk about the difference of it. Once you do this one, then you need to do the same thing with this one. Draw a rectangle and then cut it out. Now, it doesn't matter which side you draw from. You can draw from this side right here and draw a rectangle and cut back, or you can draw this one right here and cut down.
You're saying you do this after we extrude it?
After you extrude this L, yes. So you extrude the L first, then you would do a new sketch on top and cut that one out. And then a new sketch and cut that one out. So yes, after you do the first extrusion. So this one's going to take 3 extrusions to do in order to be done. Okay? Here, what will we do on this one right there?
You draw the rectangle.
Which rectangle? On the front, right, or top?
Front.
The front, so you're going to draw this rectangle right here and extrude it back. And then what would you do?
Then you go to the top
Okay, on the top,
and draw a rectangle wherever you want. And then you just put it
then you would draw these 2 rectangles and extrude those up.
to
That's one way to do it. Is there another way?
Draw up the L from the right,
Okay, I could draw the L from the right side,
extrude it, and then
extrude it back,
new sketch and take out the center hole.
and then draw a rectangle either right here on the front or the top and cut that out. And what you guys are going to find out is there's lots of ways to get to these shapes. And it doesn't matter how you get to it as long as you get to it. Okay? A lot of people were even suggesting, let's start at the top, draw a big rectangle, extrude it up to this height, and then add these 2 rectangles on up to bring it up. Because they want to start on the bottom sketch. Again, all those are acceptable. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but you got to get it. And it's a combination of drawing something, extruding it, find a place to click on it again, draw something else, extrude it, or draw something else and take it away. And that whole series of adding and subtracting things together will get you to these types of shapes. These 4 of these 5 are due again a week from today or Friday. Right now, don't try to do the circles. I'll teach you how to do the circles a little later. So you can go ahead and do that shape without the circles, and then kind of go from there. They kind of go from easiest to hardest, in my opinion. This one's definitely the easiest. These two are probably next. This one's a little bit harder because of the slant, and then this one is the hardest because it's kind of weird looking. Okay. This one here, just to give you a hint, if you know the length of this line, you get this line dimension and this one, where this line stops and this one stops. If you just draw a line between those 2 points, that gives you that diagonal. So you don't have to worry about the length of that line or anything else. As long as you know how long this one is and that one, then that will take care of that line for you. But we can go over that one in detail later on next week if we need to, as a separate workshop. So what I want to do is I want to demonstrate how to make this shape right here 2 different ways. I want to demonstrate how to do it from the front view, where we add the 2 shapes onto the top, and I want to demonstrate it from the L on the side, and how to cut that center section out. Okay. So we can demonstrate how to add something on, and also how to take it away. So in Inventor, if we close out the ones I already have done. Okay, if we go to New Sketch, go to Standard IPT, like we've always done. I'm going to first hit my Create a Sketch, and I'm going to go ahead and start on that XY plane so I can draw that front or that small rectangle. Okay, I'm going to go Rectangle, and I'm going to dimension it. Now, these dimensions may not be exactly what they are in the sheet. I'm just going to put some dimensions down just so that you can know what I'm doing. But don't pay attention to my numbers. Okay, and then now I'm going to extrude it. And I'll go ahead and extrude it back to where I got that bottom rectangle done. This is nothing new. We've done this before. Now we need to add those tips on. These right here. So I got to add those on. And again, we talked about if you draw a rectangle on the top surface, you can bring those up. So then when we go back to Inventor, if I hit Create a Sketch, I can then click on this whatever surface I want, and I now have a drawing to draw on that. When you start a second sketch, I think it's a lot easier because all you need to do is hit Create a Sketch, and then literally go through and say which surface do I want to start that sketch on, and click on it. So there's no planes that you got to think about whether they're front, top, right, whatever. It's what surface am I going to add something to, and then I click on that, and you can start from there. So really, I think after the first one's done, it gets a little easier. Now notice it did this top view right here, and it kind of turned top sideways. You can rotate that by using these arrows. I always like to keep the word top, like you can read it, so that you know that you're working in the right direction. Because now I know I need to put the rectangles up in these 2 corners. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do rectangles. Now notice that it's highlighting these lines right here. What do these lines represent? The edge of the shape I already drew. So if I want to continue on that edge, then it kind of automatically locks that point in there for you. If I need to be off the edge, and I could always draw something over here off to the side, but then it's going to stick out to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and start on that corner, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to lock that in. And I'm going to start on that corner and lock it in. And now notice what's it doing right now. It's lining it up. So it's saying, do you want these 2 edges to stay lined up? These are called constraints. And constraints are very powerful in Inventor. They're very easy to add and very difficult to take away. So if you don't want a constraint to be there, then you don't want it to do that. So if you don't know if you want those equal or not, then you want to make sure you back off a little bit so that line disappears. If you know you want to be equal, then by all means do it, because it's going to make your life easier. Okay, and I'm going to click. Now notice, the screen's also giving you a lot of symbols. These 2 slash marks, what do you think that means? 2 slash marks like this. Does anybody know what that means?
Parallel.
Parallel. What's it mean to be parallel? They're never going to cross. The distance between them will always be the same. So it's telling you that these 2 lines right here are parallel. And again, you won't be able to change that. So if you want this line to be at an angle, it's not going to happen because they're parallel. This one right here means horizontal. So that line's horizontal to the ground. Again, you're not going to be able to change that. there's an upside down T right there that's a little bit hard to see. What does that upside down T mean? You think? Does anybody know? Take a guess.
Flip it.
Has to do with the angle. It's a right angle. Okay? So the T, upside down T means perpendicular. And you're going to learn perpendicular here in a little bit in the other class. That perpendicular means that these two lines right here are forming a right angle. So again, you can't change that to be 45 degrees because it's already locked to be 90. It's constrained. Okay, so you got to pay attention to that. You can always add new constraints in this box right up here. And we have several popular ones that we're going to use. There's one that does parallel. There's one that does perpendicular. There's a horizontal, there's a vertical. The next one we're going to talk about right here is called equal. What do you think the equal one does? Makes two lines equal. And the advantage of this, and this is how you use these constraints, if I click on the equal tool, I can click on one line and then a second line, and then now those two lines are equal. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here and here. Now notice it already did that, and it says adding this constraint will over constrain the sketch, which means, hey, you've already constrained those to be equal. You remember when I did that? When I lined them up. When I drew that rectangle and I made sure they lined up. That's when I added those equal constraint in there. So it's telling you, hey, you've already done that, which is okay. It's just you don't have to do it again. And then now I'm going to say that this line is equal to that one. The advantage of constraints is now all I need to do is add one dimension, and notice it changed all four of them. Again, as soon as you add that equal constraint though, it's harder to take it away. I can't make this one a 1/2 inch and then turn around and change this to make it 3/4 of an inch. It's not going to let me because you've already said that they all had to be equal. Once I have my sketch done, I then finish my sketch. And I'm going to hit extrude. So it's still that same process. I create a sketch and I'm going to extrude it. But notice Inventor doesn't automatically select anything this time. I have to select it myself because Inventor doesn't know whether I want this rectangle. Do I want this rectangle? Do I want this T-looking shape? Do I want the T-looking shape and this rectangle? Do I want this rectangle and this T? Do I want the whole thing? What do you want? So Inventor's not going to automatically select something now. You have to tell it what you want. That's that profile button. So you make sure that button's picked, and then you simply click on what do I want to extrude, which is this button here and that one right there. Now here's a caution of doing more than one extrusion at one time. They always have to be the same. So no matter what, these two extrusions will be at the same height. You can't have one here and one up here because those are different extrusions. If they have to be at different heights, then you want to do them at separate times. Do this one first, then do this one. If you do them at the same time, they have to be the exact same height. Okay. Then make sure you change your sketches or your dimension and hit enter. And that's basically that shape by adding things on. Okay? Questions with that one? That's how you add things onto the shapes, and you can keep repeating that process over and over and over again. Now notice, in your browser, there's two extrusions now. What did I do with this extrusion right here? What did I create? That bottom rectangle, right? So if I have to change the size of that bottom rectangle, I can still go back and right-click and edit and change that rectangle there. If I have to change the size of these two tips, then that's rectangle or extrusion 2, and I can right-click and edit those and change those. And you can go back and change those at any time. Okay, and if like I said, if I want to do that and say, you know what, this isn't wide enough, I need to make it a little bit wider, I can. Did I do 20? I sure did. I meant to do 2. Okay, and then when I finish my sketch, notice again it changed the other one with it. Now, let's do it the other way. That's the way you can do it by adding. Let's look at doing something by subtracting. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new sketch. This time I'm going to start on the right side because I'm going to draw the L first and then cut out that middle section. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my L. And I'm going to mess up here on purpose. Okay. If I screwed up, do I have to redraw it? No, I can just reconstrain it. I can say, you know what? I screwed up. I wanted these two lines to be perpendicular, and notice it squared it up for me without having to go through and redraw it. So I can add those constraints at any time by simply just clicking the button that I want and then clicking on the two lines that I wanted to make that way. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make these two equal because I know they're equal. I'm going to go ahead and make these two equal because they're equal. And then now I just got to dimension this one right here. And notice it's going to change all three of those. We'll dimension this line to be 1, which it says is already done. We'll make this one 1.5. So by using that equal constraint button, I don't have to put as many dimensions down because it's already done. Because I already said that this line, this one, and this one are already equal. So now I'm going to finish my sketch, and I'm going to extrude my L the same way I've always done it. But now I have to cut out that circle. So I got to cut this circle out right here between those two. And you can do a couple of different ways. You can create a sketch up here on the top, or you can create a sketch right here on the front. Both of them are correct. It doesn't matter which one you do. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a sketch up on the top. I'm going to again rotate that around so it's facing the right way. I'm going to use my rectangle tool to draw my rectangles. And again, what's this bottom line right here represent? That edge that I already extruded up of the L. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Again, notice it's showing all my constraints for me again. So now I have to dimension it. This one right here is where most students mess up dimensioning. A lot of them will just say that's done right there. Is that done? No, because I haven't chosen any side. We're going to, because right now we have to dimension in a little bit different way than what we've done before. I have to add a dimension to show how far apart these two lines are. And to do that, I can't just click on this line right here because it's making me select the whole thing. So you might have to click on what two lines will my dimension be between, and then click one more line to place it, and then make it a 1/2 inch. Most students will put that dimension in there. Do I need to dimension the height of this line? Why not? You're shaking your head no, and I'll tell you this, you guys are right. You don't have to add this dimension.
Because it lines up with the top part of the L.
It's lined up already with the top part of the L. Because when I made my rectangle, I clicked it on this line up here and this one. I can't change the height of that L because that was done in the previous extrusion. So you won't be able to change that. So if I try to click this dimension right here, it's going to again say that dimension's not needed. If you want to accept it, you can. There's one more dimension that we have to have, and this is the one that most students forget. See if you guys can think about it. You're right, but can you describe it?
The dimension between the edges of the whole entire shape.
Not the whole thing, because that's done by before. Yeah, point me.
The dimension between they
Yep.
have to be the same.
Yes. So the dimension between, where is this line going to start at? So how long is it here, or how long is it here? Because we can't change the whole thing because that was already done before in the bottom. We already got this part, so we know we got to keep them this distance apart. But right now, as I try to drag this, I can slide this rectangle anywhere I want along that edge. So I have to dimension the distance from the edge to where one of those lines starts, which gives me that dimension that we just pointed out. And that's going to be 0.5. Now that's fully dimensioned. This one right here is the one that most students will forget. They'll put it close to the middle, or when they draw it, it looks like it's close to the middle, but if you don't dimension it, it's not correct. Okay? Now I'm going to finish my sketch. Once I finish my sketch, now I'm able to extrude it. So I can still hit extrude. And again, I have to select it because there's a lot of different options I can pick from, but I want this middle one. Notice it went up. It's trying to add it on. Inventor always defaults to adding on. You have to change it to really cut away. No, it's not negative. Good try though. There's a button right here that says cut. So this is join, this is cut. Cut takes away, join adds. So when I change that to cut, notice it automatically cut that down. And then now I just simply got to change the dimension to a 1/2 inch. And then when I do that, I'm going to hit OK. And I took that out. So a lot of our shapes can be done by adding things together or taking things away. Our puppet course will be done the same way. Add things together, take things away. But notice I did it 2 different ways, ended up with basically the same part. Doesn't matter which one you do. Questions?